My name is Mark Dixon. This is for COM 622, and my presentation is on organizational communication. Now, outside these doors here is a basketball team that is practicing, a basketball team that has struggled for years. Well, they fired the head coach, and they brought in an assistant. Now, the assistant had a plan. He had decided how he was going to change the culture of the organization, because it was a losing culture. So what he did is he has made the players more accountable, and he went through some things. Well, all of a sudden, the players rebelled. They didn't like what was going on, and he had to change the direction he was going. He had to change the culture of that, of what he wanted, the vision he had to change. So the whole purpose of this is to kind of try and understand what's going on inside of an organization's culture. And when you're trying to change things, how do you overcome resistance to that change? So that was my whole purpose for doing this research paper, and I'm so thankful that I got the opportunity to do so. We're going to start with the definition of organizational culture from dictionary.com. It defines organizational culture as the customs, rituals, and values shared by the members of an organization that have to be accepted by new members. Okay, so in that definition, it just tells you plain out. It is the customs, rituals, and values of an organization. It is everything that encompasses them as in a work environment and different things of that nature. Now, there must be an understanding of organizational culture in order for it to be implemented properly. So how do you develop culture? Well, Kalisprada in 2006 says that the culture of an organization is created when the founders of an organization make decisions and take action based on their personal views of the world. So the leaders, the owners, the CEOs, all decide how they're going to create their culture, what it is going to encompass. There are 5 steps Griffin and Moorhead reveal in making an organizational culture. Those steps are formulating strategic values, developing cultural values, create a vision, initiate implementation strategies, and reinforce cultural behaviors. So that's the 5. What the first one is talking about in formulating strategic values, that's going to determine the amount of time that you spend in a certain aspect of that organization. For example, are you going to be an innovative company? Or are you going to be an organization that is developed around customer service? So that's what determining your strategic values are. Your cultural values are the attitudes that are shared between the leaders and the group. So then you have to decide what is your priority. What are the values that you're going to place that all of your workers, all of your employees, all the members of a group or a team, thinking of the basketball team, what is the mentality that you want them to encompass? Once the results of the company's actions and values are positive, a company will take on those values, and that leads to success and a set of goals which is considered the vision of the company. A powerful vision is no idle idea. It is the heart and soul of every successful organization. That's from Hunter in 2002. Now, what he's saying there is that the vision is the heart and soul of every successful organization. So that's the next step. We had strategic values, we had cultural values, and now we have the strategic or the vision. And that vision is the direction that the company wants to go. You start from one place, it's your ending point. It's when you decide that that's what you want to be. That's what the company wants to be. So that's creating the vision. Then you have to initiate implementation strategies. Now, there's no one strategic way to implement these strategies. But the values and the vision must satisfy the group and the needs of the consumers, the needs of the employees, and the needs of the owners. that is the only way that implementation can take place, is if all people are satisfied. In talking about the basketball team, the players weren't satisfied with the direction the team was going. Now, whether it was a lack of effort or a lack of drive on their part, it doesn't matter. The culture would not work because that is what the players decided. They didn't want to be a part of it. So, in turn, the leader had to change the culture. Now, reinforcing cultural beliefs, that's the fifth step, and that's giving rewards to people for following the values, going towards the vision of the company. So, once you have that all in place, so everyone's happy, everyone's working towards that, all of a sudden something happens. A virus comes into your organization and you have to change it. Maybe the market is changing and you've got to kind of switch things around. You've got to go from being an innovator to doing customer service, something of that nature. So when you go and you take this process, in order to change the minds of other people, you have to get a buy-in factor from those people within the group, organization, or team. Ronald Ricardo, in 1995, presented a few elements of overcoming a resistance to change. First, you have to communicate the vision from top to bottom. There can not be a kink in that chain. You have to be able to communicate what you want the vision to be from top, from your managers, from your CEO, down to your managers, down to the employees, and then to the consumers. It's very important that the leaders spearhead the change and that they make it known what they're doing. The company, with that communication, must provide the education necessary. So you need to communicate. You need to provide the education necessary for the members of the organization to be successful. If you're going from innovation to customer service, you've got to teach them people skills if they don't have them. So those are a couple of things that are talked about by Ricardo in 1995 that are elements of overcoming a resistance, because if they're not educated and if they're not communicated with, they being the employees, then they will rebel. And they won't understand why this change is taking place. The rewards also must match the performance. If they're trying hard, and yes, they might make a mistake, you can't be too hard on them. You've got to pick them up. You've got to reward them for trying to do that change in order to get everyone to buy in. The biggest thing that I found in my research for overcoming a resistance to that change of an organizational culture is they've got to trust the leader. Now, trust is a big, big thing to have, especially for some organizations where the employees never meet the CEO. They never meet some of the top managers, maybe once a month. But you have to develop a relationship with everyone. You have to communicate with everyone. They have to trust that whatever direction you take this company is going to be the right one. Trust is the biggest part of overcoming resistance to change. And the problem with the basketball team is they didn't trust the head coach. It's his first year. It's a new system. They didn't trust him. So he had to change. And that's not the way it needs to be. You have to gain that trust. And so it all comes down to leadership, gaining the trust of the employees. If there's no trust, then all of what I just talked about does not matter one bit. The culture of a workplace determines employee satisfaction, which in turn determines employees' dedication and the effort to having positive results and outcome. The culture creates a vision of an organization, and it takes it in the direction that it needs to go. There must be complete buy-in, as I've said earlier. And so I concluded the research with the five steps of creating a culture in formulating strategic values, developing cultural values, creating vision, initiating implementation strategies, and reinforcing cultural behaviors. So those are the five that have to take place to create it. Then you have to not only if there is a need for change, in order to overcome a rebellion or overcome resistance, you have to communicate, you have to educate, and you have to be trustworthy. So you look at this, and future research could include things, questions such as, would fear do the job? You think of Machiavelli's The Prince. Do you want to be loved or feared, or is there a medium that needs to happen for the organizational change? Not just implementing the culture, it's the change that, would you rather them change, your employees change because they fear that they'll lose their job? Or would you rather them change because they love you? Or maybe they won't change because they love you. These kinds of questions need to be evaluated. Also, does the market of the organization determine the culture? Does it mean, if you're in sales, is your culture going to be one way than if you're in customer service? There's just so many questions that go along with this. And it all stemmed from one basketball team that had a direction, did not get buy-in from the players, and the coach has to find a way to change. The last thing I want to say is that future research should also discover, you have to take into account what success means to be in a successful organization with a successful organizational culture. You think about, does success come with profit margin? Or does it come with employee satisfaction or customer satisfaction? And if you take all of those things into account, it's going to be hard to discover what the right way to implement and to overcome resistance to an organization's culture. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. I'm sorry I stumbled around a little bit, but I thank you again. And I wish you all luck in your future endeavors, and I pray that God will keep you safe, and I pray that you will let His light shine through you. Again, my name is Mark Dixon, and this presentation was Organizational Culture.